Hello and welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week we continue our retrospective on Godzilla with the 1965 movie Monster Zero, also known as Invasion of Astro Monster or Godzilla vs. Monster Zero. And I'm probably missing at least a couple of other English language titles of this film. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, editor of this summer's Castle of Horror anthology, which comes out in July. So it is time to get your copies of the Castle of Horror anthology. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. And also in Austin, writer of the long-running underground comic series Halloween Man and winner of the 2018 Best of Austin Award from the Austin Chronicle, Drew Edwards. Say hello.
I'm just going to keep saying the power of Godzilla compels you. The power of Godzilla compels you.
Drew is here, and he has been running from a screening of The Exorcist, which ignited my favorite conversation of the entire week, which is, which do you prefer, The Exorcist or The Omen? As
I don't think it was which do you prefer. I think it was which was scarier, or what was the question?
I actually can't remember what the question was.
It's which you prefer, because
which you prefer.
Like Elvis and the Beatles, you can like both, but you can't like both equally.
Uh-huh.
And I really do want to get into that maybe in our endorsement section, but I don't want to get into it here, but boy, it's a great question. Finally, also in Denver, as always, color commentary from attorney Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello, Julia.
Hello.
Okay. Invasion of Astro Monster, also known as the Giant Monster War or Godzilla vs. Monster Zero, is a 1965 kaiju film directed by Ishiro Honda, co-produced and distributed by Toho, with special effects by Eiji Tsuburaya. And the film stars Akira Takarada, Nick Adams, who we've seen in a bunch of these movies, Kumi Mizuno, Akira Kubo, and Yoshio Tsuchiya, and Haruo Nakajima as Godzilla. Once again, Masaki Shinohara as Rodan, and Shuichi Hirose as King Ghidorah. And once again, I feel very sorry for Shuichi. It is the sixth film in the Godzilla franchise. So the franchise is still quite young at this point. It was an international co-production of Japan and the US, and that explains Nick Adams' presence in the film. The second collaboration between Toho and UPA is released in December of 65 on a double bill. This is exactly the way I saw this movie, with War of the Gargantuas. So let's get our opening thoughts. Once again, we will return to our kaiju master, Tony. Let's go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go Tony. Monster Zero, lay it on me. What are your opening thoughts here? Like, what are we looking for? I don't know. How do we come at this movie?
I don't know. I really like this movie. I think it's a good follow-up to last week's King Ghidorah or Ghidorah, depending on, if you're sub or dub or however you want to do that. It also has several of my favorite moments of Godzilla movies. It's got some awesome space. It's got some awesome alien costumes, which I still wish I was better at costuming, because I would definitely do a Halloween band thing where the whole band dressed up as the Mexians. They're crazy. Shades and crazy uniforms are awesome.
Awesome.
It's kind of fast and loose with the actual, if you really think about the plot too hard, it kind of comes apart a little bit, but it's got some really great moments and some of my favorite stuff, which we'll talk about when we get into it. But yeah, this is one of my favorite.
Wonderful. Julia, so I know you really loved last week's one, Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. Where does this fit? Does this have that kind of affection?
Yeah, this was really fun too. I definitely at first again, it was the same thing as last time, where you're just kind of like, oh, this movie's called Godzilla versus Monster Zero, right? And it's like 30-40 minutes in, and there are no monsters even mentioned, let alone actually in the movie. So it starts out as just a science fiction movie about this mystery Planet X or whatever, and Planet X, yeah, Planet X. And is there life on it? And these astronauts are going to go find out and whatever. So it's kind of a science fiction alien movie for a while, and then suddenly we remember that there are monsters involved. But so they don't have the monsters on there. They don't have a lot of super special effects for a while. And then you kind of you see where all the budget money went there in the last like 10 or 15 minutes. It's like, oh, okay, that's where they spent all their money. That's why they didn't have any money for the earlier scenes. It looks like, but it's a really fun film. It actually has a story. It actually has characters that are memorable and lines that are memorable. So I think I'd like this one a lot better than some of the other things we've watched.
That's wonderful. Okay. Drew, what are your thoughts?
I really like this movie. It is a little scant on monster action, and I think for people who claim that the more recent Godzilla films don't have enough monster stuff in it, this would be an excellent movie to go, but actually, and show them. But I really enjoy, that aside, look, it could have more of the monsters in it, but when we do get the monsters, you get some really cool stuff like the Godzilla dance and, like King Ghidorah and Rodan and Godzilla fighting on a space, a foreign planet. Aesthetically, I love this movie. Y'all already brought up the really awesome sort of lost new wave band outfits that the space aliens wear. I love the way the spaceships look. I love like the designs of Planet X. Like I really love the sort of ray gun gothic atomic latter atomic age sci-fi aesthetic that this movie is just dripping with it, man. And again, it all takes place within this now established Toho monster universe. So it kind of has this sort of, I feel like there's like a kinship here between like if you were reading like a Marvel comic from the same time period, both like aesthetically and the fact that there is now this like interlocking movie universe, but it just means that the main thrust of this movie universe is that the world is crawling with giant monsters, and the UN is now this overarching power because of that for whatever reason. But like I just find the world of these movies to be so fascinating. So I also really enjoyed this movie.
I actually do totally want to talk about the world of these films, especially the power of the UN. So first of all, I really love the look of this, and it made me want. In fact, I want to jump right into this about the world and where this film fits in. This is the sixth Godzilla movie. And these movies have moved, when you include this and other ones like Mothra and so forth, they have moved quickly into establishing that this is not the world that you and I live in. This is a fantastic world full of crazy sci-fi and aliens and so forth. Is this the first one in the Godzilla universe that had active aliens getting involved in stuff, or that happened in any of the earlier ones? Does anybody know?
Well, there's stuff like the Mysterians and things like that are kind of grandfathered into the Godzilla universe, but in
the Godzilla universe,
I don't know.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, literally in the Godzilla continuity. Last movie, we saw that there were benevolent aliens who were trying to send messages about the dangers of King Ghidorah. And in this one, we have gone full on into a universe where there are active aliens with flying saucers and messages and evil plans and all that stuff. And I was just curious if that. It seems to me, I'm going to assume that this is where it really takes that jump. And boy, is it a big step, because once you decide, this isn't just a world where there are giant monsters, but it's also a world where there are active, like, crazy aliens doing secret stuff on the Earth. It's actually, I don't know, it's wonderful, and it creates that more full universe that you were talking about. But it also makes it one step farther removed from something that a person off the street who's never watched a movie like this is going to be ready to follow along with and sort of take it as something that could happen in their world, which is kind of a crazy thing to say, but that's I don't know. That's definitely there. In other words, by this sixth Godzilla movie, if you're watching, you're down with like whatever's going to happen. Tony, you said you watched a different version. Can you explain like what the different versions of this film are? Or is there anything to know?
I mean, there's there depending on what you see. In general, I mean, they kind of count as two. Like if you get the DVD or Blu-ray, there's two versions: English and Japanese. And it's kind of funny because in the subtitle, Japanese version, Glenn's character, the character of Glenn, Nick Adams' character is dubbed in Japanese, but he recorded all of his lines in English.
Right.
So they had him record all of that, and then went, "Nah, we're gonna stick to all Japanese here." So
yeah, but it looks so funny.
It
looks so funny because you can see that they're speaking different languages, but depending on which language you watch it in, it's all the same language. So if you're watching it in English, everybody's speaking English, but you could see that they're speaking Japanese. And if you watch in Japanese, everybody's speaking Japanese, but you could see that they're speaking English. But it's so trippy to imagine what it was like to be on the set and hear them just acting in different languages.
Right, and everybody was cool about it by all accounts. On purpose, and but they did, unlike like Italian pictures, they would record all the sound as they were, filming. So it wasn't a redub, but stuff like that. I think there's some differences. If I remember correctly, in the English version, they say, "Hey, we're going to cure all diseases."
Yes,
but it's more specifically cancer in the sub.
Interesting.
And of course, things that are cut for running time. But it's just, I mean, it's still enjoyable, and again, it's fun to listen to the dub. I watched it the same way this time, where I watched the subtitled version and then I watched the dub cut with the commentary track.
I would have loved to see the subtitled version, because I'd love to see Nick Adams. So you're saying that even in the subtitled version, how do they present?
That he's dubbed in Japanese. He's dubbed in Japanese.
So you liken it to the thing that actually jumps to mind most to me, which is Italian pictures, where all the times you've got American actors like Joseph Cotten, and Spanish actresses and all these different people who are just sort of acting based on their own script, and God knows what that script looks like, but they're reading a line and somebody else is reading a line, and in those cases you're exactly right. They don't even bother to pick up a soundtrack, and everybody dubs everything in the studio. And this is not that, but it's something close. So that's really cool. What's going on in this one is, okay, last we left, remember, you had after the aliens warned the world that Ghidorah was dangerous, Mothra came and convinced Godzilla and Rodan to team up with Mothra and beat this ancient creature that had come to Earth in an asteroid, which was Ghidorah, and they together chased Ghidorah away. In this movie, Mothra is forgotten for whatever reason. Mothra is not here. Doesn't matter.
Well, allegedly, Mothra was left out. Yeah, for budgetary reasons.
Okay. Mothra was left. Whatever, budgetary reasons. Fine. And what's going on? And this is like it blows my mind how much bigger the world of Godzilla gets in this one movie, because our astronauts, who are, by the way, who are being bossed around essentially by a world government that has sprung up. The UN has essentially become a one world government with its own space agency and all this stuff. And Nick Adams is an American/UN astronaut with his partner, and they are going to this new planet that's been discovered. And the moment they get there, the aliens say, "Listen, the reason we'd like to talk to you is that somehow or another, after you chased King Ghidorah away, he came here and he's wandering around and it's giving us all kinds of problems. And we would like it very much if we could borrow Godzilla and Rodan to deal with Ghidorah." There is so much in that concept. Like, first of all, there are other planets that are inhabited.
Well, to start though, they're sending these astronauts to the newly discovered Planet X.
Yes.
So we've got this mission. We're going to say, hey, we're going to take a couple of astronauts. It's going to be an international thing. It's American, Japanese co-production. We've got this cool rocket. And they're going to go behind Jupiter and go to Planet X and see what's up.
Yeah.
So
it's Nick and what is Nick's Glenn and Tetsue, I guess, is the other astronaut.
And
no, not Tetsue. I'm sorry, I apologize. Tetsue is the inventor. It's Kazuo. Anyway, go ahead. Continue.
And so they get there, and immediately things go awry with Planet X. So
yes,
which I think there's some hilarious things that it's people talk about, oh, well, there's this weirdness on this, an alien, oh, would you do that? But in this, not only so they start out, they get out and they just kind of wander around. There's no real, it doesn't seem like there's a very good plan. And one guy disappears and then they come back and the rocket's gone. So they have this like dude versus a rocket moment, which would be really disconcerting. I mean, as far as adventurers go, he really does take it kind of in stride. Because coming back to your rocket and having the whole thing gone would seem extremely stressful and awful.
Yes. And this Planet X, they quickly, it's obvious they're able to like open up the Earth and they have elevators everywhere. They just sort of grab the rocket and like suck it under the earth.
But he doesn't know until they get there.
And how awesomely 60s is the inside of Planet X, by the way, because when they they're walking through hallways and stuff, all of this looks like it's highly influenced by James Bond movies.
Absolutely.
All these interiors and long oval hallways and glistening metal everywhere. It all looks like the inside of anything from a James Bond film of this period.
Also, they seem very trustworthy of the aliens. I mean, I was picturing where they start talking to them through their suits, like a disembodied voice, and the elevator comes up. It's like this hidden. They've been hiding underground to escape Ghidorah.
Yeah,
which. For as long, I mean, they've really got this thing going on. For as long as Ghidra's been on Planet X, it seems like it would be a shorter time, but maybe.
Boy, that's a really good point.
They really pivot. Again, if you think too hard about a lot of the plot in this movie, it kind of sort of falls apart.
Well, I would have liked to have gotten a line or two about why the Planet X people know so much about what goes on Earth. Like, how do they know they're called Planet? Why are they calling themselves Planet X when that's also what Earth calls them? How do they know that Earth calls the monsters Godzilla, and Ghidorah? Well, I guess and Ghidorah.
That we know. They have spies. They've got spies.
Yeah, but how did they? Okay, you're right. They have spies. So how did they? You're right. So I guess then the question would be: since when have they been coming to Earth, and how long have they been spying? Did they say that? Did I miss that?
Big question is if all they really wanted is to get Godzilla and Rodan to
Why didn't they just grab
them? to take control of them and everything. Why, once Godzilla and Rodan are there, do they go through this whole burlesque routine of making them fight King Ghidorah, where they have been like, okay, and we can control them, and we're gonna kill the two of you, and start our invasion of Earth? But they actually essentially stage a fight, which is weird to think about.
Yeah, they seem to waste a lot of time with a lot of things. Like, there's a lot of pretense where you're just kind of like, why are you bothering to talk about this whole thing with the or like, the movie seems to be short on plot, and so they're like, we got to fill the time. So they spend a lot of time, for example, when these two guys are in a prison cell talking about why is this room soundproofed when in fact there are bars, so that's not soundproof because there are bars. So there's all this air space between the bars that is clearly not soundproofed in that there is nothing there. And yet they spend all this time talking about why it's soundproof, but it doesn't work because guess what? There's air between the bars. And there's a lot of stuff like that where they just kind of waste time. We're going to spend time with this pretense of
this concept.
How we're going to give you. Like I was wondering, are they trying to buy time before they get attacked? Because clearly their intention is to attack the Earth, but then they say, oh, no, we want to give you guys a great deal where we're going to give you the cure to all the diseases or cancer or whatever it is. And then they're like, haha, psych, we're actually going to take you guys over as colony. Like, why didn't you just start with that? Because it's not like we were ever going to be able to defend ourselves against you anyway. So why do you bother with this pretense about diplomacy when in fact you're just going to take us over?
Okay, a lot of questions in that. So let's unpack this just a little bit.
Well, also, by the way, they're awful trusting early on, because I kept picturing things like if you were truly like an evil alien, I just pictured stuff like the person goes to the elevator and the aliens go, haha, that was really a blender.
Yes.
Right, but they have no choice, because the fact is, you don't want to believe that you've just stepped into the layer of really bad guys. If at all possible, you don't have to. If you can at all not have to believe that. Whatever you say.
So I just want to talk about Planet X for a moment more about their world. So let's presume that really they've been running from Ghidorah for centuries. Like let's presume first of all that Ghidorah in fact goes back and forth all the time and has been harassing Planet X for so long that Planet X has now got it down where they are underground and they have their whole defense system is built up around dealing with Ghidorah, and now they're fed up with it and they think there's an opportunity because they've discovered Earth. But basically Ghidorah is a very important part of their civilization. Other than that, their civilization seems crazy. I mean, that because they number everything. That's fine. They know everything by numbers. They have males and females, and they have spies. There's a whole.
Females
there's a guy.
All look the same for some reason.
Females all look the same. There's a guy called the Controller who's like the hair director of Planet X, and he's got like 18 guys who are his, I guess, council, but all they do is just sort of stand there all the time, and I know this is a stupid thing to be concerned about, but I really would like to know more about Planet X. Like, what does Hair Director do when he's not like yelling at underlings to go after the Americans?
Yeah, do they have like a gym or a pool or something?
What does he do? Does he make speeches to the other Planet X people?
Do they have movies?
Are there other Planet X people?
He's
we don't know.
That decided that they all were going to wear those matching outfits.
Yes,
so he deserves to be
that's
commended.
That's a military thing. So I get the impression that it's kind of like being on a submarine in the military. So you've got your uniforms and you've got your your orders, sort of. But yeah, the question is, what's their recreation time look like?
What is their world?
Are there
like,
other people?
What do they eat?
Yeah.
Like, what do they? Do they have music?
Well, apparently they don't have much water.
They don't have water.
And then suddenly he goes, no, we have plenty of water. Don't worry about that. I'm like, wait,
fine.
Well,
do you?
they're going to take our. They're going to
take the Earth water.
Yes.
That's what I assumed too. I was
so
like,
clever.
Yeah.
I also love that the commander of Planet X, or controller of Planet X, he also uses all these hand gestures all the time, and I could never tell if they were Japanese culturally significant hand gestures or if they were also going to be alien to the Japanese audience. So, because he uses lots of them.
So in the commentary, evidently that actor is his own breed.
His own thing.
And
he's great.
Also,
I love him.
He evidently came up with not only the weird, because when he's truly speaking, there's times when he's not speaking Japanese in the original.
Really?
He's speaking this made up alien language.
Awesome.
And he just also, one thing that's a shame is there's a few actors, starting with him, where he came up with this weird way of talking as an alien. But in the dub, that doesn't really come across.
Right.
He's got this cadence and how he speaks.
That makes me sad.
He's decided to go like, I am an alien and I'm going to method act alienness. Controller Planet X.
I hate that I'm missing that.
Yeah,
I think you could probably find it.
It sounds pretty great.
But even like not speaking Japanese, I can't know when he's doing something completely different than what the Japanese would have.
You hear it. You
can.
Yeah, there's when main characters are talking, it sounds like Japanese, and this guy comes in and he's speaking Japanese, but it's its own thing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
He's got his own cadence and stuff, and it's in conjunction with these hand gestures. He goes full on, which is really cool.
Well, the hand gestures are fantastic. I found myself constantly just mirroring him because I was like, this is great. I love doing this.
Yeah, I mean, if you have anybody you work with and you wanted to if you're
mess with them,
if you're a leader and you tell them like, go to the copier machine. You just start making those.
All of the hand gestures.
like you're
are
like
great.
you'd be like, we need to get together, and then you put your two index fingers up like parallel. We need to get together, and then you do something else where you're like hands, but like kind of fist pound yourself, and I mean it's just like there's so many things that are just that you're like, what does that
It's
mean?
all
That's
wonderful.
So
He does seem quite alien. I have to say.
He does, yeah.
Can you imagine doing that as like you're the interviewer?
Yes.
Like, what is your weakness? And you're like doing these hands gestures while you're asking.
Oh my God!
Where do you
to see if the interviewee
years?
would go ahead and like if he'd go ahead and like echo it, like to try and is this what we do in this company? Okay, I'm going to put my index fingers up and point them towards one another while I talk.
I kind of want to do that at either interviewing somebody or at an interview. Like my greatest weakness is also my strength, and just make these crazy ass hands gestures
and like pump your fist and then hold it in the air.
Yeah, it's great.
Extremely pat answers, but with those hand gestures.
There's what it reminds me of is when you think about Hugo Weaving, the Australian actor playing Smith,
in the Matrix.
both his physical presentation, but also remember how Hugo Weaving invented just this weird vocal pattern that basically he half borrowed from Carl Sagan, but it's just nobody else talks like that, and it was so strange.
Supposedly, this is third-hand information. Totally a tangent, but a friend of my brother-in-law's supposedly did the dailies on the Matrix.
Oh yeah,
Well, I was one of the people who did archiving of the hard drives.
Yeah,
and evidently I forgot which Wachowski, maybe both of them, but one of them would come up, and he's like, I don't know if they were messing with me, but when they talked to him, they also sounded like Agent Smith. And he said it was just weird, like
super weird.
I don't know if this person was telling my brother-in-law, I don't know how to take this because I can't tell if that's just their personality.
Yeah.
Or
in which case maybe Hugo Weaving was doing an impression of them.
Exactly. And he never, I don't think he ever really figured out what, he's working this job and it's a good job and it's a cool movie.
Sure.
But
that voice
really
that he did was astonishing. That the voice pattern, it was just a really, and it gave it an alienness. So he was his own special effect. He's a guy in a suit, and the special effect is that he talks. This smell, it's amazing. It's so
because they would come up and
Mr. Anderson.
The guy, whatever his name, Mr. like it was me, Mr. Salvaggio.
Yes,
you have the dailies. I'm like, wait, what? So, I don't know. It's kind of a tangent, but it's always been a really funny
that's a great example of what that must sound like to hear this guy talk in Japanese with his weird alien accent.
The controller goes, I'm glad we've impressed you with how awesome and weird our planet is. Doesn't say we've got spies on your planet. And he goes, let me show you something real quick. Check this out. Ghidorah's here. Boom. He opens a window and they're like, that's Ghidorah. And so we're in direct continuity. That's so awesome. He's like, all right, can I borrow Godzilla and Rodan? They're like, we can't give you Godzilla and Rodan.
It's like, no, I'll come get him. Don't worry. And in return, I'm going to give you the
continuity. The continuity, other than the fact that Mothra is left out, which whatever. The continuity is pretty tight here, considering that unlike movies now, like we can watch this movie basically, it's on Amazon.
Yes,
if we feel like it, if somebody feels like it, they can watch Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and Godzilla vs. Monster Zero back to back, basically anytime they feel like it. And we don't think of anything about like the interlocking continuity, but the thing that I find fascinating about the continuity here is, and we talked about this a little bit with like the Universal Monsters films as well, is like this is an era where the people making these movies just had to assume that the people seeing this movie saw the last one and hoped that they remembered it.
In fact, they've applied.
it's the context is there. So,
but they've given enough. Well, I think to Drew's point, in other words, they're being more for the world of 65. They're being more faithful to the continuity than they need to be, considering that you can't. There's no guarantee people will watch it. Most people don't remember very well, and so they're doing a great job here with that. And also we benefit from the fact that they're just using the same suits. Of course, why would you want to make an all new Godzilla suit? And so it's really cool. Now, meanwhile, back on so they go, we're going to borrow the monsters and we'll give you a cure for cancer or disease, whichever version you see. Now they're back on the Earth. Fuji, the astronaut, Nick Adams' partner, he has a sister. Once again, this is like a common plot in these that I've seen. For some reason, the brother-sister relationship, where the brother is very jealous of his sister in the machista sense. He's very jealous, very sort of controlling, wants to make sure she marries well. And here we have that again.
Fairly traditional.
I'm sure it is. I've no doubt, but it's such a common trope that it's like the go-to plot for a lot of these, where you got a brother-sister pair, and the sister is involved with whoever, the hero, the villain, whatever, and the brother is.
Well, and
very
it's super
judgy.
weird because they're about to take off. They're in a spacecraft, and he's going, "Is my sister there?" And like, tell her to not do anything crazy, not to do anything weird, not to whatever. Like, don't do anything until I get there. Just stay put. And really, this is the kind of message you're going to relay through your
But presumably, this is so common as a cultural trope.
Yeah.
That it's just nobody would like it. So fine, whatever. And we've seen it like at least three of the Japanese movies that we've covered. So it's got to be either a very strong cultural trope, or we just happen to have seen three by directors who are obsessed with this particular plot.
Right.
But yes, controlling brother, sister, blah blah blah. She is dating in this one. Haruno, the sister, is dating a dude named Tetsue, who is a brilliant inventor who makes no money and has made this ear-splitting siren thing that the aliens send. I'm spoiling it, but the aliens send somebody to offer him $100,000 to buy it right then and there, and he gives them the invention.
And everybody keeps going, "Why would anybody pay for this piece of crap?"
Yes,
so loud.
And the guy's like, "Yeah, right." Yeah.
I do think it's funny that nobody gives the scientist any respect at all, including his girlfriend, who is constantly like, why aren't you more responsible? What,
I think calling him a scientist is a bit generous.
He seems to be. I mean, luckily he does invent the thing that helps with aliens, but
yes.
Well, and we know
he
that's
seems to be an inventor in the same way that the dad in Gremlins is an inventor.
Yes.
Pretty much. Like that, because the thing that he's like, hey, this will help women, and it's a good idea, chase
attackers,
attackers away.
That is the thing that we have. We as women in the world have alarms that we can carry around if we want to on our keychains, so that if somebody attacks us, we can blare a very loud noise.
But not like this.
No, not exactly. But it's loud,
ear splitting, and terrible, and everybody also it doesn't shut off easily.
I love that nobody has any faith in him. Like, he goes, "Hey, this woman came and bought my invention for $100,000," and everybody's like, "Oh yeah, did you get a check yet?" Like, no, he didn't.
Yeah,
of course, he
no, and they're like, why?
More power to you, I guess.
It reminds me of when on Seinfeld, when George tells his parents, "I'm going to be a TV producer. They're buying Jerry's my idea," and his parents are like, "Sounds pretty stupid to me. Since when are you a writer?"
Yeah.
I just love that.
It really explains a lot about George.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh man. So anyway, the woman who buys, luckily it's a very tiny world. The woman who bought the inventor's invention is also, I believe, the alien spy who is dating Nick Adams once he's back on the Earth. And this whole world fits into a Dairy Queen as far as the number of people.
I have a comment, question, whatever, about where we were at culturally when this movie came out. So this movie has an interracial relationship
Sure. Yeah.
with implied sexual activity, through dialogue. First of all, this makes it the least chaste of any relationship that we have seen in any of these Toho monster movies.
It's a super good point.
Done. And secondly, it's an interracial relationship, and I obviously as a 21st century guy, I don't have a problem with that, but I do wonder if that was at all controversial at the time this movie was released.
I have no idea. I mean, there was some sort of hubbub about James Bond sleeping with Asian women in whatever You Only Live Twice, which came out after this. But that's James Bond. But I have no idea if that was just marketing or if this was something that people. I literally, and I'm not trying to be naive. I've never read anything where people brought it up. It's a good question.
I didn't see anything, but I think it does go into that. Hey, it's cool for James Bond. Why not? Why isn't it cool for this guy? Also, the interracial relationship in this is still everybody goes, hey, so what kind of woman is that?
And it's actually, to be fair, it is an interracial relationship, but that's actually an interspecies relationship.
Yes.
So it's not really, we don't have to tarnish the reputation of any proper Japanese women because she's an alien.
You brought up a super good point, by the way, Tony. Yeah, Julia, that's excellent point, which is that however much you disapprove of her, pretty soon it's apparent that she's not even human. But when everybody knows that when everybody assumes that she's human, his friend, everybody's in everybody's business in this movie, for one thing. Like, because everybody's like, who's this girl that Nick is going out with, Glenn? Who's this girl that Glenn's going out with? Is she okay? Like, in other words, like, apparently, I guess it's, if she's willing to like meet him in his convertible and like go off to a bungalow with him, there must be something wrong with her.
Well, she is like more overtly, like, compare her to the other female character in this movie. She looks more mature.
Yes.
But she also dresses, she's more glamorous, like she's more like sexy in the way she behaves and acts. Like she's got bright red lipstick on. So she's actually, I guess, more Americanized in that respect. So she does stand out, and again, you're talking about them going off to a bungalow together. That's a very different relationship than we've seen in a lot of these other monster movies. The fact that there is an implication that they might be having sex. Like, there's even a whole bit of dialogue where they're talking about how he thinks he has this dream about the controller of Planet X. And
oh man, that was weird.
His friend asks him, oh, well, what did she think? And of course means she was in bed with him, which I wonder if this was scandalous at the time.
But like I said, if it is, you can easily go, oh, that's because she's an alien. Never mind. It's fine.
I don't think it was scandalous. And the reason I say that, so you're right that it's way more mature than we typically are accustomed to in these films, but not scandalous. And the reason I say that is, once again, I go back to James Bond. That dude is banging everybody. And those movies started in 1962. So this is like,
James Bond is never serious about anybody. Like, these two are saying they're in love with each other.
Yeah. I don't know the answer to that. It's
interesting. It's an interesting point. So I want to throw in here, even though it's a little bit out of sequence. When he gets captured, he sees, or not captured. I'm sorry. When they're at the planet again, he sees they kind of go off and explore. The two astronauts go off and explore things without permission around the ship, or the planet rather. And he finds these other women who look exactly like her, and he's like, "Oh, it's me. Why don't you remember? Why don't you recognize me?" And the women are, well, first when he sees one of them, and then when he realizes there's two, he realizes, oh, all the women look the same, and therefore my girlfriend is from this planet. And so he has this conversation with the controller where he goes, well, beauty is more than skin deep, and the controller is basically like, we're gonna have to agree to disagree on that one.
He says,
just made me
let's
laugh.
not argue the point.
It's like, let's not argue the point. Like, they're just, they're all pretty faces, and who cares? And I just thought that was really interesting that we have this whole kind of secondary story that we could have gotten into about who these women are. Are they like, because they're partly electronic, so are they like androids, or are they like, what is it when you have like cyborgs? Are they partly human?
I think they're like the Borg. I think they're like
cyborgs. Yeah, I think they're like cyborgs in that they have the capacity for feeling, but feelings have been pushed down and like not.
And when their feelings erupt, they're a problem to be destroyed, which is what was going to happen to Hugh, and it's what's going to happen to
her.
To this girl. Yeah. So back on Earth, there's debating back and forth. Hey, do we, the world government, think that we should, have somebody take our monsters away and give us a cure of cancer in return? And everybody goes, on balance, that seems like a good deal.
Especially since the monsters are constantly destroying everything and killing all these
people. Yeah.
I actually never saw the downside to getting rid of the monsters. I was like, no, I'm with Glenn on this one. I think was it Glenn that was like, yeah, they've killed us plenty. We don't need to like worry about.
Well, unless you're like somebody like Monarch, and there's no example so far in this series yet, at this point, of somebody like Monarch where you're like, no, that they're a part of the Earth's ecosystem. We really need them here. So.
But that's not part of this. Like in fairness to that, like that's baked into the backstory of this current series of Godzilla films. That's not really
they haven't invented anything like that yet. Yeah. So the monsters pick up the aliens pick up the monsters in big bubbles and carry them off. It's the coolest.
That was a neat scene. I love that scene. First they freeze ray them.
Oh, yes,
and then in their frozen status, they transport these bubbles.
Tony's right. Can we please get snow globes of the monster? Like, I want little curled up Godzilla in a snow globe. That sounds fabulous, truly. Or a Christmas ornament.
So this is the first time. Yeah, it is a big, great Christmas ornament. The first time we see the monsters, and they're frozen in these bubbles, and then they're transported to the planet, and then they're set down, they're unfrozen, and suddenly they're like, "What the fuck?" Like they're suddenly like waking up, going, "Where am I? And why am I being attacked by Ghidorah? Where did it even come from? What's happening?" And so Godzilla goes into, "Well, I guess I'm gonna throw rocks now." Mode, and somehow gets behind some other rocks, which I never saw him do that, but that was pretty smart, where he's like, I'm gonna get some shelter. So then he's like behind this like fort, of rocks, and then he's throwing rocks, and then they start having their little fight, and then the astronauts take off, and poor Godzilla and like Rodan are just looking up like, what? You're leaving us here?
Oh my gosh, I felt so sorry. Again, these things are these are species killers. I mean, these are dangerous creatures, but I felt sorry for them. Like somebody was leaving their dogs on a farm. It was awful.
It's more like I didn't feel sorry for them. I feel more like it's like feeling sorry, which I mean, you can feel compassion, but it's like feeling sorry for a serial killer who you've locked up at Alcatraz, and you're like, okay, well, we're gonna go now. It's like, yeah, I mean, as a human, I feel compassion for anybody who's gonna be stuck on Alcatraz. But dude, you totally had this coming. I mean, you really just.
They did save him from Ghidorah, but I guess that was also because of Mothra. So.
Yeah.
Well, and we're missing a lot of the sophistication of the last movie in a sense, because all of the funny stuff of Godzilla and Rodan being able to have debates about whether mankind was worth saving, all that's gone in this one. Unfortunately, we don't have anybody who can go, Godzilla is saying to Rodan that it seems very treacherous that mankind would leave him on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
I would have loved to have heard that. I feel like monster dialogue should have become a permanent piece of this series. And unfortunately it didn't.
We only get one more movie where they really actually talk.
Oh, really? Yeah. Which I haven't seen. You said that was Gigan, right?
Yes, correct. Which we're going to cover. Like we have to. But
we're going to ride this train until as long as the continuity continues to make sense. We're gonna to keep at it. What boggles my mind, by the way, looking forward, is that apparently Godzilla was like gone for something like a decade, like 9 years. Like when this series that we're looking at right now ends, there's no Godzilla like for a decade. That blows my mind. That it was just there was none. It's like that period between Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a lot, and watching these commentaries as well. Drew, were you able to watch the commentary for this one as well?
Unfortunately, no. I only had time to watch the actual movie.
Right. So there's more than one person, and it's been in various articles and such as well. A lot of fans say because it got goofy. Because again, you have one of my all-time favorite bits where Godzilla does dance when he's
Yes.
a victory dance, the Godzilla Shay, because there was a popular pop culture thing with this jig, the Shay.
Yes.
And so they said, hey, this will be cool. A lot of people in the production thought it was really dumb. And
Really?
did not want that in. I think it's fabulous.
I think it's fabulous
Like I
as
said
well.
before, I've taught people to do it at concerts I've been at.
I love it.
I have a tiny little blind box statue of Godzilla doing the dance.
No, I think it's hilarious. Super cute.
It's great. But a lot of fans go, hey, this got really goofy, and that's why it died out. Like, it got too goofy. Diehard fans didn't want it. But in actuality, it was the nature of film distribution.
Oh.
And horror movies. And there's a film crash that happened. So it was less about this thing being goofy. And thanks to the I'm kind of repeating some of it that I've heard on commentaries as well as just stuff I've read. So thanks to the people doing the commentaries on these DVDs. Shout outs. But it's less about that, even though it seems like, oh, look, we've got all these goofy movies, nobody's taking this seriously, that's why nobody cares about Godzilla anymore. Whereas in actuality, it was doing well overseas, it was doing fairly well in Japan, but as you make more movies in general, people there's a diminishing return on a lot of franchises, and that's more than at surface level it looks like, oh, look, all this goofiness killed the franchise. But that's not really, if you track it, it's not really what happened. But I am really glad about the goofiness. I love the monster battles where, when Godzilla gets woken up, he's like, what the hell? Like, wait, I'm not on Earth, and why am I being attacked?
Yes.
It is definitely what you call a rude awakening.
Yes.
Sure, absolutely.
My rebuttal to people who criticize stuff like the dancing and in general Godzilla behaving more and more a human being,
yes,
a big dinosaur. That as a kid, that was the stuff that kept me coming back. The city smashing stuff. Well, that's stuff you get from other pop culture characters.
The
Toho actually started developing into in their own right with individual personalities, and I can still tell you, like in several of these Godzilla movies, Godzilla has these particular things that he does. There was even a thing that in the movies that come after this where Godzilla would always into a fight where he would crack both of his knuckles like he was a boxer. As a kid,
he wipes his mouth as well.
I love that stuff. And again, it keeps these characters from again, it's what makes them characters, because there are lots of there's a reason why it's the Godzilla franchise and not the giant Gila monster franchise or the Blob franchise, because there's lots of movies with big monsters to destroy buildings. We go back to these and we analyze these for these reasons, because this is an interesting universe and the monsters became characters. And I think you're cheapening how clever some of this writing is in these movies if you can't see that. Not that I don't enjoy the more serious Godzilla movies too. I do. But I think this is the reason, it's stuff like this that does set Godzilla apart as a character, as opposed to just a generic monster.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. And we find this all the time in genre, right? Where there's some sort of entry level conventional wisdom about stuff that is like the first thing that somebody learns when they get into a particular fandom. And then, there's like, to me, there's kind of like this philosophical graduation point where you realize, you know what, I don't need to hold on to that belief anymore because it's not important anymore. You know, I don't need to like sniff that Godzilla movies all need to be serious. You know, you can, as Tony's pointed out, you can pick your poison, you know, and there's different kinds for everybody. But I had always heard that the smog monster, that it hadn't done well, and that was sort of the end. But actually, come to think of it, there was Gigan after that. So I'm just fascinated. When you think about it, if Gigan is the end of this period, the Showa period, I mean, look, 54, 64, 70s, that's like almost 20 years they had this movie series going before they pulled the plug on it for a decade. That's pretty darn long. I mean, that's a long time to actually, I'm sorry, they had the Showa period going to 75. So 20 years, literally 20 years before they pulled the plug. Marvel movies have been going now for about a decade, and it feels like they've been with us forever. That's 20 years that they had Godzilla going before they canceled it. That's amazing. Anyway, we the how does this alien thing work? Basically, the aliens, everything so far, the plot makes more or less sense, and then suddenly it doesn't so much anymore. It kind of gets all sped up.
Let me see where we are. So we've gotten the aliens have told
The aliens took the monsters away.
The aliens told the astronauts they wanted the monsters. They bring the monsters, and then they go,
they say,
okay,
here's a tape. This is a tape with how to make
here's this
their
beautiful
medicine.
Oh, by the way, they have lots of gold there, but they have more gold than water. But anyways, they have this gold case that has a tape in it that presumably, for some reason, is exactly the right kind of tape to play in the Earth, tape players. Anyway, so they go, on this tape is the formula for the cure to all diseases. Have fun, go crazy. So then they take it back and they gather everybody together, and I guess they're broadcasting across the globe, and as they play this, which I think is kind of an odd choice, but whatever. So they're playing this thing, and the guy goes, hey, it's the controller here. Just wanted to let you guys know that you're all a bunch of idiots, and we're actually going to take you over, and you're going to be our colony now. And so go ahead and surrender to us and admit that you're our colony, and all will be pretty much okay, except for the fact that we'll be controlling you. But they decide, well, maybe we're not going to just do that right away, and we're going to think about whether we should nuke the whole world and kill ourselves, but not be prisoners of you guys. And so all that's going on. And let's see. So what else? So then, and they've brought the monsters back, and so now there's a monster battle as well as the soldiers who are fighting the monsters and the aliens. I guess I was a little confused. That was a very confusing battle scene for me. Very fun and entertaining.
Oh yeah, well, this is some of the now it gets good because now the fighting all happens on the Earth and we're knocking down buildings. But I don't know why it's happening. Like, why did the aliens bring the monsters back? Did they bring them back
as a threat? Like, because they're controlling
them. Oh yeah, they're controlling the monsters. That's right.
So they send them out to basically, as if their technology wasn't good enough.
Right.
Mm-hmm. They go, just in case Ghidorah isn't enough, we've got the rest of your monsters on standby.
Yeah, we figured out how to control them all, and so now they're all going to attack you guys.
They've now renamed Monster 01 and Monster 02. Planet X counting is very strange.
Although they never, ever, ever demonstrate any capacity at all to control those monsters.
No, but they say that they can. And that's the thing. Is so that, and the Earth people believe that they can, and that's why their whole thing about how they're going to combat this is that they need to interfere. It needs to intercept the communication between the aliens and the monsters. So they're like, well, we need to figure out some way to disrupt the waves, so the communication waves. And so while they're working on that, the other guys are finding out that finally the idiot inventor guy's invention is actually going to be useful.
Which they knew. The aliens knew that was going to be the case.
Yeah, the aliens knew that.
Which is why they had tried to buy out his technology. By the way, I just want to go back for a note. I super apologize. I feel so embarrassed. Ghidorah was 1971, and there was still like 4 movies to go. So I'm so sorry.
No worries.
Anyway, continue.
Okay.
Go ahead.
But so I was gonna say is the poor girl that fell in love with the astronaut has been killed because of her to admitting that she loves him, and they're like, well, you're
Mm-hmm.
not allowed to love anybody, so we're going to kill you. So they kill her, but right before they kill her, she puts a note into his pocket, and the note says in English, hey, just so you know, there is one thing that will defeat us, and that's this one sound. And they figure out that the sound that the siren makes, that the guy invented, is that sound. So since they have the soundproof room that's soundproofed except for the bars that have the big gaps between them, they are able to blast this sound and thereby defeat the guards and grab their keys and get out and throw them in the cell. And then they're able to get out, and they actually are pretty clever because they trick the aliens into thinking that they've escaped on a boat, but instead they've sent their own guards out on the boat, and they're just hiding on the dock. So that was pretty cool. And so they're able to escape. They swim somehow to wherever the other guys are, and then magically they're dry when they show up there. But whatever.
By the way, I just want to say I love these sets. Love the alien compound on the rocks.
Yeah, they have
with
this
the
like
little
gorgeous
place.
house on an island.
Oh, all of the alien. Actually, to be honest, I want to give it up for the set design in this entire movie.
Yes.
From the aliens' headquarters on Planet X to their secret hideout house, to the interiors of their rocket ship, to the restaurants that the good guys eat dinner in. Everything.
And the models that get destroyed in the battle are beautiful.
These are all sets. They all look wonderful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all just fantastic set design, and I want to live in this world because I really like everywhere they go.
But
except for all the giant monsters.
Yes.
And the alien attack. Yeah. What were Tony? What were you gonna say?
But also important in this is the fact that when we originally see our illustrious inventor, once they have dinner with the brother, he just really messes it up. So he gets kind of an arc where he gets comeuppance, where finally he gets to go, hey, so the thing I invented is actually useful, right? And he gets an arc. Yeah, but he gets an arc. But even, he messes up so bad because the brother, it's a very traditional thing, and they really messes up when the brother leaves and pays for the dinner because he's supposed to, which you wouldn't really pick up on unless you kind of knew how all this was going. And so the fact is, he's not even good enough to know. He's so flustered that by the end, when the brother's like, here, I'm paying for everything, that's like a huge
slap.
You're saying because it's a date and because he invented because he invited his girlfriend and her brother, he should be paying because he
well, they meet up so that the brother can maybe give the approval. But of course we've gone down this thing where the invention, they're not even paying him, and he gets
$100,000
the conversation gets really, he screws that up, and then by the end the brother goes, hey, here's the money. And then if you watch closely though, you can see you can see her just look like, oh, yeah, this has turned out really bad.
Yeah.
He's flustered too. So by the time that he's able to show and prove that, look, it was my invention that helped save the Earth, that's kind of what wins it in the end.
Yeah.
Because until then, the brother's like, this guy is useless. You can
the funny thing is, if you had a continuing series, like if this were a soap opera, you could go ahead and have this conflict between the brother and the inventor last for years. You know, like and just keep going back to it. And also what you would do is you continue also to force them to like work together on stuff.
Because eventually they also put him in prison.
Yes.
He keeps showing up and they're like, oh man, can he just look, we needed the invention because that's what will kill us. But
why didn't they just give him the $100,000?
I know. And also, by the way, why when they bought the invention, did they not make him turn over the actual thing that he invented? Like, why does he have it in his satchel in order to defeat them?
Well, I think they didn't know that he had an extra one.
I guess so, but it seems like they should have searched him, or they maybe shouldn't have let him have luggage.
Work.
Right.
They maybe shouldn't have let him have. Like, usually when you take somebody prisoner, you kind of inventory their stuff and take it away from them.
Well, they were too busy shoving monsters everywhere.
Yeah, I guess so.
I think they're missing. I think that they are missing some understandings of Earth, and that's fine. But how fortunate for us.
Yeah, that's true.
The aliens in War of the Worlds were allergic to the common cold, and these guys just don't really understand backpacks. And so,
also they're counting on that. They're so advanced. They don't anticipate that we make the electromagnetic jammer either.
True. Yes.
Because when they look at it, to them, like, well, we have these monsters, we're going to destroy things. We're just super way ahead of everything you could possibly think of. And because of that hubris, they don't count on him having his own thing that they can broadcast, as well as the the jammer that actually frees Godzilla and Rodan.
And by the way, that's yet another plot that was introduced back into Godzilla King of the Monsters 2019, is the big noise that we're going to broadcast, and it's going to have an effect on the monster attack.
Yeah.
Right.
It's cool to think that is the sort of pseudo sophisticated version of what we're seeing here.
Well, and I enjoyed that this guy is the controller's the stereotypical villain who just goes, I don't care how you do it, just do it. And he keeps saying, like, just fix it. Like, why are the computers not behaving? Just make them work. And they're like, we can't. What do you mean you can't? Just do it. And then in this case, they actually can't, and everything falls apart. But it made me happy, because I get so sick of watching shows and movies where the villain leader guy goes, just do it, and then they do, like, they kind of rise above whatever the obstacle was. And I'm always like, no, they couldn't do it before. Why can they suddenly do it now? Just because
sometimes you can't fix a bug just because the director is like yelling at everybody to fix it. Damn it!
Exactly.
Well, I think I've had that actual conversation.
Yes,
since my job is technical. Well, can you just do this? Well, no, none of the software works that way.
Just because you yell at us doesn't make it suddenly work better.
And why wouldn't I do that if I actually had a way to make this work?
Exactly.
Why would I just sit on it?
Yeah, it's like you kind of just want to go, oh, now that you said to do it, now I can do it.
You want it to work. I'm stupid. I'm so sorry I didn't think about that.
Exactly.
I just sat at my desk going, man, I have the thing to make it work, and I just didn't do it.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do now.
That's why I have a salary, is just to make things not work. Yeah. No, I've had some similar. Well, can it just do this? No, because it's not doing that now.
Yeah,
there may be a way if I do enough research, but there's some things that it just isn't, especially with like third-party stuff. Like, I had a discussion where a bunch of people sent me something and they say, there's all these bugs, what can we do about them? And sadly, 3/4 of them were just, that's the way that works, and everybody online is asking why it sucks.
Yeah.
And I had to report that I apologize, but it's just going to suck. And here's 10 articles about why it's going to continue to stay that way.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and often it's time, right? It's
sure.
We're going to have some response
or
to
money,
this, but it's going to take time and resources.
Or resources, yeah.
And even if the resources is just one person, it's going to mean that person is going to be working on this and not something else. But anyway, if you're in a rocket ship that is wobbling,
I'm feeling for the Planet X guys a little bit now.
I know.
That's
the hilarious thing
my job. It's too close to home, like the whole resources. Well, we have these many people. Can you work on 2 things at once? I've been asked that.
Sure.
Why didn't I think? You're right. I should have been. Why don't I work on 10 things at once? Why stop at 2?
Right.
But yeah, it is awesome. Just do the things. But
they do have one technology that works, and that is apparently they can let us blow up our present situation and port to the future where they won't be able to chase us.
Oh yeah, that was out of nowhere.
And
Let's just go to the future. I guess that's so that they can preserve the possibility of using those characters again in another movie.
There is a time travel thing in the 90s Ghidorah.
Okay.
Where Ghidorah's formed, there's a whole time thing, and I think it's kind of in response to the.
Well, are these guys ever going to be heard from again, Tony? I mean,
do the Planet X guys come back?
Okay, all right. So we will.
Which is a shame, because we need more of those outfits in our life.
Yes,
I agree. I again, this every time I see this, I think, man, if there's ever a chance where I could construct these for Halloween for my band, and play as members of Planet X, I just really want to do that. I'm sure it's been done. There's no way it hasn't been, but I would also do it.
Yeah.
So, the astronaut Glenn, Nick Adams, gets, at the end of this movie, he is the new ambassador to Planet X, and they're like, you have to fly back to Planet X. And I was thinking about this while watching this movie. Like, the other thing about the Godzilla verse, or this iteration of the Godzilla verse in particular, is how much better technology is on Earth than it is in the real world. Because, like, even now we can't jet back and forth between planets the way these guys do, and they're doing it like they're flying to like another country.
Yeah, it's a really good point.
It's an inconvenience.
Well,
and I have to think that part of the reason why technology is so much better is constantly having to deal with these giant monsters.
I think so.
And it's also why the world works together so well.
It's a really good point. Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
There's two parts of this, though. The actual rocket does take a long time. Maybe not as long as it would with technology being what it is today, because they're pretty much in awe when they're heading back to Planet X. When they take them the first time and go, hey, we're going to go back, they are definitely in awe of how fast it is compared to their original rocket. And B, you said like how things go. So the electromagnetic cannons, they eventually, if you'll notice the design, they turn those into maser cannons later. So they've taken that technology and turned it into anti-Godzilla technology at a later date.
Huh.
Well, I mean, even if they are in awe of how fast the flying saucers are, and how fast their rip-off rocket is, but they're still flying out to Jupiter, which is not something.
What I'm saying is their rocket is not nearly as fast. Yeah, but their rocket isn't nearly as fast. I get
that, but their technology is still better than what
sure.
1964 technology was, or even present day technology is in a lot of respects.
I like your theory that basically this is our world, but then something happened in 54 when Godzilla showed up, and the presence of Godzilla is what probably caused technology to just leapfrog, so that we have all kinds of cool new advanced weaponry and vehicles, transportation, because of the presence of giant monsters. Which, fine. I mean, I'm down with that idea. I mean, that seems, I don't know if plausible is the word, but I can certainly buy it as as the way a world in the movies works.
But also remember, this awesome rocket is courtesy of Japan.
Yes, that's
so
a
Japan
totally
is definitely taking a step ahead in the world, in the sphere of where technology is. Let's not forget that.
Yeah,
that's how it is. Like, hey, we've had to fight Godzilla, but the rest of you guys, American guy on a rocket. That's cool. Come over from NASA, but you're going to be flying in a Japanese rocket there, buddy, which is interesting in kind of how that, even though it's not overt within the story.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I do wonder, though, Glenn seems extremely appalled at everything and losing his girlfriend, even though she's a secret agent.
Yeah.
But I do wonder if he's going to bury Zap Brannigan, oh yeah, I'm an ambassador to a planet full of my girlfriend.
Yeah, it's a super good point.
Like many dozens of my ex-girlfriend, but he never really mentions it, of course. But you kind of wonder. He's like, oh, I'm really shaken up, but I'm sure these dozens of her.
They will.
How this ambassadorship shakes out.
I think there's astronaut Glenn's hot tub party in the future. So here's a question:
gold hot tub, no less, because of how much gold they have.
For where we're gonna go after this, and we should wrap up. But I wanted to mention, so Ishiro Honda directed this movie and the previous bunch. I mean, except for Godzilla Raids Again, this has been the director all along, from Godzilla 1 through this Godzilla. Same director. He'll be gone for 2 movies, and then he'll be back with Destroy All Monsters and All Monsters Attack. And I'm just curious, do you feel like we should? We can kind of discuss these offline. I'm just curious, are we going next to the Jan Fukuda movies that are in between, or are we going to skip on and continue with the Honda universe? What do you feel like we should do?
I mean, definitely Megalon, because it's a ton of fun, and Gigan because it has. I like this retrospective going with the super weirdo goofy.
All right, cool.
Although Smog Monster is also really good, but
Oh,
Megalon
Smog
and
Monster's
Gigan
a bummer. I thought Smog Monster is one guy who stepped in. So now that I look at the lineup, Jan Fukuda and Ishiro Honda just trade places over and over again, all the way to the end. But Yoshimitsu Banno stepped in for Smog Monster, and that movie's a bummer. So I don't know. So we'll figure out what
It's
we're doing.
awesome, but it's got a great theme song to Save the Earth.
Second only to Green Slime. Yes.
I kind of feel like that. Hear me out here, and I can already hear the internet's eyes rolling. That the quote unquote Godzilla in Shin Godzilla is actually the Smog Monster, and I don't feel like that we would have got that version of Godzilla without the Smog Monster as sort of a prototype of sorts.
I have not yet seen
I
Shin
think it's
Godzilla. I've got to watch it. I do.
I watch it and come back to that thought because
Okay.
the fact that the Godzilla in that even kind of starts out as a kind of Godzilla tadpole is very Smog Monster-esque.
I kind of hear
All
you.
right.
I can see where people would disagree, but I think that's a really great observation. I think that's not outside the realm for sure.
If you say that, I I am happy with that. Like if everybody else like gets on social media and go, "You're a crazy person, Drew Edwards," then I'll be like, okay, whatever. But I'll be like, Tony agrees with me. So I will see.
Well, I didn't. It wasn't something I thought of, but the more that you like thinking it through, that's entirely possible. Especially considering what is updated and what's being said with Shin Godzilla. Unfortunately, they're not making it a Shin Godzilla sequel, which is sad. But oh well, we'll see what they come up with for this new Godzilla movie.
I need to watch it. Let's get our final thoughts.
I am less a fan of it than a lot of other people, Jason, but it's still something you should watch.
I've heard that. I've heard that it's a very interesting alternate take on Godzilla. You know, like sort of daring, and I do want to check it out. Okay, we was Tony, Joya, Drew, and then I'll go. This has been really a fun conversation, I think. So Monster Zero, Tony, take it away. What are your final thoughts? What do you want to leave people with, or any way that you want to go with it?
I really enjoy this movie. I think it's got a lot of great, the sets are great, the costumes are great. There's some great shots, monster shots, where they do like these cool establishing shots. Neat effects where they're bringing Godzilla and Rodan. Like I said, if we had snow globes or ornaments of those, that would be amazing. It has my favorite Godzilla dance, which I could watch.
Yes, no doubt.
Anytime I'm feeling down, that definitely brings me joy. And I like in the dub, it cuts to the controller, and he goes, "A happy moment." It's such a nice. There's a Godzilla dance like loop on YouTube, and they cut that part, and I just always find that hilarious. A happy moment. I really dig it. I think it goes well. Yeah, parts of it are campy. Yes, some of the alien stuff falls apart if you really think about it. Like if they had spies, why didn't the spies do things? There's all kinds of things that you could really analyze it, and it would come up lacking in some of the serious ways, but I just dig it. I think it's cool. I've always enjoyed it. Cool international cast too. Nick Adams is turning in a cool debonair astronaut spy type of guy.
That's his last performance before he dies. Like he dies super early at the age of 36, right after this.
Yeah, if you read about, it's a really tragic story. The commentary on the DVD brings a lot of it up, but it's unfortunate kind of how he approached, how he saw things as far as his acting career and choices that he made. It is really unfortunate because I think he plays a really cool, he was in several, he's in War of the Gargantuas. I think he plays a cool character.
Frankenstein Conquers the World too.
Yeah. He fit well. It didn't feel forced. And it's unfortunate that his career was kind of tragic in those ways.
His life.
But yeah, I really dig this movie.
Wow. Thank you very much, Tony. Drew, what about you?
Well, I think Julio was next.
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry. I was reading down the list incorrectly. I apologize. Julia, final thoughts. Monster Zero.
Well, we didn't mention the fact that, in part of their trying to save money, when the aliens go, oh, hey, we're going to be taking you guys over, they have this short segment of, like, suddenly it feels like we're in like what did I say it was, like Batman or something, like, so like the Batman TV show, where suddenly there's a narrator that comes on and goes, yeah, and then things get really bad, and they show all these newspaper articles.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. That's true.
And so that was kind of funny, because it was just like, and like, a few months later, however much it is, when we do have the monsters in the battle happening, and then that's where, like I say, where they spent all the money, because I don't feel like we talked enough about that battle, and I just really enjoyed the model work. I enjoyed the using the fireworks. I really wanted to know how they did back then, how they did the model cars and trucks and tankers, because clearly they're models because of how they move. But I couldn't, like, sometimes it looked like it was just like a train track kind of thing, because you couldn't see the ground. But sometimes you could see the ground, so we're trying to figure out if they're remote controlled, or if they are like magnets under a table moving them along. Anyway, there was just a lot of that stuff where you just wonder
I'd
how
like to
they
know that
achieved
too. Like,
these wonderful practical effects.
does anybody know, how do they move the cars? I know that sounds like a silly question, but I really would like to know. Do they have a magnet underneath?
It's a combo. There's like some remote control stuff, some magnetic stuff.
Some train
some
track
being
stuff.
pulled by wires. Yeah, it just depends on.
Well,
who's
they
doing
did a great job with that. They do a great job with the explosions and the fireworks, and they did, like, whenever they had an explosion in the water, they had like some kind of like carbon dioxide explosion under the water, so that it would look like, there was just all these neat practical effects, and I really miss that kind of stuff in these modern movies that are all CG, because they're so creative, all the things they come up with to make these wonderful effects. So I really enjoyed all that. I enjoyed the models, I enjoyed the explosions, I enjoyed the the monsters, all of that. So that just made me really happy, and it made up for the fact that was so much of that was missing in the first 2/3 of the film, because they couldn't afford to do it the whole way through. So you finally get that there at the end, and it's just a lot of fun. So yeah, I thought it was a really fun film. No female characters that really felt like any kind of great stride forward for women or anything like that. But it's fine. There wasn't particularly offensive in that. When they are offensive, they kind of get called out on it a little bit. So yeah, I think it was really fun to watch.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Joya. Drew, I appreciate you kicking it back. So, what are your thoughts?
Well, I just think this is a really fun movie. I think it is a movie that I am now going to mention anytime I am arguing about Godzilla movies with people who think that they are just wall to wall monster battles, because that's certainly not what this movie is, nor really needs to be. It clips along just fine, until you get to the monster stuff. I love the aesthetic of this movie. I don't think I can stress that enough. Like, I have a affection for sci-fi from this particular time period, and we talked about that a lot last summer when we did our Atomic Age stuff. This is a little later in that time period than that stuff, but it's still a good example of that kind of design thought process. And I just love seeing all the wires and the smoothness to everything, and it just looks so cool to me. So I love that about it. And as Julia pointed out, when we finally do get to the monster fights, like, they are very well done and worth the wait. So good stuff.
Wonderful. I would have nothing whatsoever to add to that, except for that I just really enjoyed discussing all this. So, and we'll be back next week, and I can't remember which one will be next week. We will be announcing that soon, but it'll be more goofy Godzilla goodness. Maybe Megalon. I don't know. Maybe Megalon comes next.
So, Megalon is on the docks.
The cool thing about Megalon, and some people might disagree with me, but you can watch Megalon if you choose through the MST3K version. So, there's, and so, there are purists who are like, I would never watch a movie as presented by MST3K, and then there are non-purists who are like, hey, it is a funny way to absorb an awful lot of a movie. So that's up to you.
I think that's a good episode of MST3K,
Yeah.
but I will say that I hope that everyone watches it, at least the dub. That's the most readily available.
Sure.
But yeah, I hope that people watch it, normally without, at least for this, because I think it's a different thing. They make fun of a few things in retrospect. It's like, well, that's just part of it,
Sure.
But that is a really good episode because it's a crazy movie.
Yes, indeed. So, all right, I want to get to endorsements, and the same order. This is just what you've been listening to, what you've been watching, what you might recommend for people. It's the summer, so there's extra time to watch and read stuff. So same order: Tony, Julia, Drew, Jason. Tony, is there anything that that you want to share with people?
Oh, I'm trying to think. It's been super busy.
That's the
lately,
other problem with
so
the summer is
I'm
we
still
yeah.
my thing is still the Spider-Man PS4 game, which I'm late to the game with. It's been out a long time. Trying to think what else. I haven't done a lot other than watch these, and just my advice. I have gone on Amazon while I'm just doing other stuff and finding just weird. There's so much just weird, obscure stuff if you dig deep enough into Prime, and I highly recommend that. Finished Good Omens as well, which was a great update to the book, and I really love the book. So I definitely am recommending that. But in general, find some cool, weird, obscure stuff, and find some cool music. I've been lucky enough; I've been able to get out and go see a few bands lately, and find some weird, obscure music as well.
That's wonderful.
I think Rain turned me on it, and another friend of ours turned us on to a duo called Clatter. Female vocalist who plays just insane bass lines. So yeah, they're really, really good actually. So if you're out and about in music land, check out Clatter for sure.
Wonderful, thank you. Julia, what do you have for us this week?
I can't really think of any media thing to endorse, but what I was thinking about, this is completely random and off topic, or not off topic, but just not on the
Nothing
topic
can
of
be
horror
off topic.
movies.
You're fine.
Not the topic of horror movies. Is when I was thinking about the untimely passing of Nick Adams, and how back then I think there was probably a great deal of taboo around getting therapy or going to rehab or whatever it is that maybe would have helped him. And I know even now there's plenty of people who die from drug overdoses or from suicide, and even though there's this readily available stuff. But to me it's just, I mean, gosh, I really just hope that people who are hurting don't feel like they shouldn't get therapy, or that they shouldn't get help, or they shouldn't call hotlines, or they shouldn't go to rehab just because other people will think certain things, or other people, or maybe whatever. I really would want for people who are hurting to get the help they need. I know that sounds, I don't know, it almost sounds like shallow to say, but I'm just thinking about that, going, God, it's so tragic to me that somebody who's so talented felt such pain that he would either take his own life intentionally, or just do something that would destroy his life that way. Anyways, I don't know what, I'm kind of blathering, but just if you're hurting, please don't just reach out to people around you, but actually reach out to people who can help you in a professional sense, because a lot of times the people, your friends, they're like, oh yeah, I'm here for you, but they don't know what to do. They don't have the training, and they're not going to be enough sometimes. So anyway, I don't know if that's helpful to anybody, but there it is.
I think that's great. That's lovely. Wonderful, thank you. Drew, what about you? What do you have to share?
Well, as you mentioned when we started tonight, I was rushing home from an event which was an 8th anniversary party for Blood Over Texas, which is a local group ran by Miss Bunny Voodoo, who is also a burlesque dancer and former member of Satan's Cheerleaders here in Austin. And they put on horror themed events, and this was their 8th anniversary party. It was also a showing of The Exorcist, which is her favorite movie. But I wanted to give them a shout out because I've done several of their events over the last year or so. They always do a great job of getting local fandom to come out and take part, and people actually, I go to so many of these events that get put on, and people don't actually support the vendors. That never actually happens at these Blood Over Texas events. Like people come and they actually want to check out local art and local comics and things like that, and tonight was no exception. So if you are in Austin, I highly recommend that you check out one of their events sometime in the next few months. I am going to be vending again at their Horror for the Holidays event, which is a Christmas themed thing in November, and I know that's months away, but still,
It goes
if that's
fast.
the next thing you can check out, that's the next thing you can check out. That should be what you check out. I also, along those lines, fueled by this event tonight, I also posed the question on Facebook, Exorcist or Omen, which do you prefer? And it was a fun conversation. I would like to know, even though that is worlds away from Godzilla, and particularly the Godzilla movies we've been covering, I would like to know what people think on social media.
Yeah.
Which do they like better, Exorcist or The Omen? Because I think I have this belief that like Elvis and the Beatles, you can like both, but you can't like both equally. So which is your preferred form of Satanic Panic?
Yeah, Julia, what's your answer?
I didn't answer it because I couldn't decide what like meant. So I was like, I don't really like either of those movies because I find them terrifying, and I don't really like the feeling of being terrified. I think The Exorcist is much more memorable and much more terrifying, but that doesn't mean I like it more because I don't like being terrified. So I that's why I couldn't answer it.
Are you saying you respect The Exorcist
my
more?
head started to explode a little bit from that question. Yes, I think it is a better horror film than The Omen because it's more memorable, but I did enjoy The Omen as far as creepiness factor, so I think it's also very good. But yes, so as far as enjoying goes, probably I enjoyed The Omen more because it's less terrifying.
Yeah.
For my part, I agree with you that I think that The Exorcist is more in your face and edgy, I guess.
Yeah.
And I do love a lot of things about it. And I think, particularly as a fan of like makeup effects and everything, like it's definitely got that going for it. But I have to say, I just love The Omen more in part for nostalgic reasons, because that is a movie I used to watch with my dad a lot as a kid, strangely enough. And, also I just think it's so atmospheric and creepy. And
well, and it's so much truer to life.
The
The Omen, because you can absolutely see people, and I'm, who remain nameless as kind of these humans that possibly might have the devil in them, if such a thing were to exist, as opposed to how the Exorcist portray. Like I know people may say that they have experiences. I have never seen a real life person who does the kinds of things that happen in The Exorcist. However, I've seen plenty of people who seem pretty damn evil, and you know what I mean. So it's like, to me, it's like a little bit more believable than with The Omen.
Gosh, there's so much here. Like what I love about The Omen is all the stuff that everything from its, like, the fact that its music was nominated for the Ave Satani music, but then again, The Exorcist has that great theme as well. But the The Omen seems much cheesier in a sense, and I love it for all that. Like I love the fact that Gregory Peck is like digging up a grave and there's like a shootout at the. It's all so. There's something sort of like sophisticated drive-in really about The Omen. And go ahead, Drew.
My rebuttal to that is, especially since I have just seen The Exorcist, The Exorcist is so much more grisly. It also has so many things that would not seem out of place in a Hammer vampire movie.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not knocking
especially its attitude towards like it's very serious towards Catholicism for most of the movie. And then at the end, you have, Max von Sydow flinging holy water around like he's Abraham Van Helsing.
Oh yeah, no,
And
I love it. I really love it a lot. And we did the whole Exorcist series, and you remember my whole theory was that basically instead of following what they did, that they ended up kind of following the Max von Sydow character, and I kind of would have been happier if instead what they had done is like just kept doing what I would call another Exorcist. In other words, I kind of feel like they should have just remade the first movie over and over.
so,
you know,
okay,
and-
here's one other thing, and I'll shut up about the after that. Who do you think is the exorcist that they are referring to in the title? Is it Father Karras or Father Marin? Because they're both exorcists,
Yes.
but only Father Karras actually succeeds in driving the devil out of Reagan. So
That's a
I
good point.
think in the end, when they called the movie The Exorcist, the person they are talking about is Father Karras.
I don't
And
know.
this is
I-
this is something that might actually keep me up tonight.
It's a great question. And by the way,
Yeah.
obviously, by the time you get to Legion, it's different from what I said. That one clearly is following. It's still following the same original story, but you've got the George C. Scott character. So, but and by the way, The Exorcist 2. If anybody's listening, if they're still listening, and you want to have a good time, watch the movie, and listen to our show discussing The Exorcist 2, because that is a good time.
Or listen to our podcast
Yeah.
and don't watch The Exorcist 2 because that is a
Yes.
terrible movie.
I'm totally down. Skip to 3, always. There was a friend of mine not too long ago who was like, "Oh, I gotta watch. I'm watching them in order." I'm like, "No, you don't have to do that.
I guess you don't.
1 and
But it's
3,
such a
you're good to go. You are totally
Super funny.
my
a
goodness. What a
ball
goofy
Jason,
movie
I
it is.
thought
Oof.
Jason, I thought you had given up on talking to people about how you were going to torture people at the end of each episode, but
Yes.
apparently
Now
not.
you're telling to watch 2.
Oh man. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much, Drew.
Well, and it's
All
an
right.
interesting tie-in, real quick, just to say, to you were talking about Good Omens, because there's the Omen is really what should have happened in Good Omens, because they're watching the Satan kid, and the Satan kid. I'm not going to spoil the end, but the Satan kid does not go the way that he goes in the Omen.
Yeah.
It's a completely different ending there, so that's kind of interesting. Anyway, but yes.
One of the major issues with the Omen series is that they lose the thread of what would have made Damien a really interesting bad guy. That they had so many more things they could have done with him, and we pointed them all out as we were going along. But
Well, it ends up
yeah,
being like I think the Manchurian Candidate should become the sequel to the Omen.
absolutely. All right. So my endorsements actually are both from Prime, for sure. And although I have to say, like I say, Castle of Horror Anthology comes out this week, so keep an
Woohoo.
eye out for that. But my endorsements, both from Prime, exactly like Tony said. First of all, I discovered something called Mark of the Witch, which is a 1970 movie filmed in and around Southern Methodist University in Dallas. And it's about a witch who comes forward and takes over the body of a co-ed because she has evil plans. And it's fabulous. I mean, it's just really like what a neat, satanic panic film, way early for the satanic panic. I mean, it precedes The Exorcist. It's like before all this was cool. It's very. I'm not saying it's a good movie. That's probably not the right way to go about it. It's exactly what it sounds like when I describe to you that it's about a bunch of co-eds at SMU, and one of them's been taken over by an immortal witch. And I also watched a film that Prime recommended to me, and I'm so glad, called The Ghost of Dragstrip Hollow. It is about a bunch of hot rodders, and they are in conflict with one another, and their hot rod the drivers of the hot rods who are doing the illegal drag racing, all women. So first of all, that rocks. Like there are no. It is so interesting to me that in this film, all the hot rodders are female, and they are breaking the law, and one of the hot rod clubs is trying to go straight, and somehow in and amongst all this, they lose the funding for their clubhouse, so they have to rent a haunted house, and in exchange for cleaning it out, maybe they'll get to keep working in the haunted house, but they're bad guys. And I'm making it sound like a much more coherent film than it is. It is 65 minutes, so it's barely a film at all. The plot doesn't make any sense, and it's fabulous. I loved this terrible film. The Ghost of Dragstrip Hollow, 1959. That's my recommendation of the week. So, gosh, that brings us to the end. I really enjoyed discussing Monster Zero, and I can't wait to come back with more Godzilla goodness next week. I hope everybody's having a wonderful summer. Thank you guys for being on, and I'll talk to you all soon.
Good night.
Night.
Bye.
Night all.